figure out. But never late than better late than never. If you can see me and if you can hear me, just type in the chat. Okay, awesome. So I think somebody has some problems with audio. So yes, your audio will be garbled. But hello everyone, and welcome to the India Game Developers Conference. I'm Rahul Sehgal, and this is our first virtual conference online because somebody in China decided to eat a bat. So welcome everyone, and this is where all the action is. This is the careers track. This is where you come if you want to be rich and famous. No, I'm joking. But seriously, this is the careers track, and we have some fantastic speakers today, including me. I'm just joking. So we have some great talks here on the careers track. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 talks. And since we're already late, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to get our first speaker. So our first speaker today is a former student of mine. His name is Satish Chandra. Now, Satish is the founder of Teapot Games. And you know how it is. The dream is to be a solo indie developer, and you get to live in your pajamas, you stay at home and you make games. At least in theory, you don't have to even leave the house, and you can be a game developer. You can make games, and people can download them, and you can make a living. So very few people actually succeed at this. But Satish is one who has actually been doing this for many years now. So he owns Teapot Games, and instead of going blah blah blah, I'm just going to let Satish start talking. So give me a moment while I share my screen.
Hello everyone, welcome to IGDC. My name is Satish, and I run an indie studio called Teapot Games. I've been an indie developer for 7 years now, and in these 7 years I've produced 10 games. Some of those games did fairly well, others not so much. All in all, those games are close to $12 million on Google Play and App Store. Some of them even won awards at IGDC, and some were selected for showcasing at various international events. So 3 weeks ago, I was approached to give a talk about my solo indie journey at IGDC. I didn't say yes immediately. I asked for some time to think about it. I wasn't quite sure how me talking about myself has enough value to be part of the IGDC talks. But then I realized there are a few mistakes I made in my career that other aspiring indie developers should not have to repeat. I quickly realized that instead of telling just my story, I should maybe talk to other prominent indie developers and hear their stories and present a compilation of the lessons we learned throughout the years. This way, I thought I can present a more comprehensive guide for aspiring indie developers. So once I decided to make this an anthology of Indian indie journeys, I also started a series as an opportunity to present the different ways in which these indies have managed to find their footing in the industry. This is some have found success in making games for the Steam. Some are making premium games on mobile. Some are experimenting with dominant trends in the industry, like hyper casual. And some have narrowed on a more niche genre and found success in it, like myself. So I will be talking about these indie developers and their journey so far. and what were the right things they did early on in their career, and also the mistakes they've made, so that we all can learn from them. Yeah. Also, almost everyone I am presenting in this talk has won awards at IGDC, which goes to show that not all of them may not be commercially successful, but without a doubt, they've made good games and they are at least critically successful. Yeah. A disclaimer of sorts. While I was speaking to these developers, one of them expressed a doubt about the relevance of my talk for upcoming indies. His point being that the gaming industry changes so fast that the decisions he took back then are not really topical anymore. But as we go through these indie journeys one after another, I think you will start to notice certain lasting commonalities between them that are still relevant. We will talk about them towards the end. Another indie expressed concern that my talk can actually do more harm than good. There is a real danger that by just talking about the successful journeys and not covering the failed ones, I could be presenting a distorted view of success in the gaming industry. To address this, I'm also going to talk about the ground realities of indie game development. Yeah. So let's begin. Yeah. To begin with, we have Vaibhav Chawla of Underdogs Gaming Studio. Vaibhav jumped into gaming straight out of college, and this was 12 years ago. He worked for India Games to Win and Hangama before starting his own studio. Things didn't go out as planned for Vaibhav, and he had to use his own bedroom as an office for his team. And 6 months later, they made a game called Skatelander, and that was their first commercially successful game. So let's look at what went right for Vaibhav in the early days. So he worked on his skills early on, and in fact, he told me that he learned 3ds Max and Maya during his engineering days on his own. And these skills helped him land a job in the gaming industry immediately after his graduation. And obviously, those skills came handy when he was making games as an indie. And he also aggressively networked with people in the industry. He told me that he joined Hangama just to network with people and establish contacts. And that helped him secure service projects in the early days of Underdogs. So what went wrong? After working on some client projects, Vaibhav decided that they should develop and publish their own games. Why not? But he underestimated the value of publishing and marketing, and consequently, their new games did not succeed. It was then they had to vacate their office space and move back to his bedroom and started work on Skatelander. So where is he now? Vaibhav has produced several successful games since then. He's currently working with hyper-casual publishers while also working on in-house narrative games like Mukti. Next, we have Asar Dandala of Seven Studio. Asar has made his mark in the Indian indie scene at a very young age. He is in his early 20s and he made games called Picto and Petit with a very strong progressive tilt. Picto deals with the debilitating effects of domestic violence on young children, whereas Petit tells the story of a woman using key incidents in her life in the form of small text snippets. The mainstream press loved these games, and in his opinion, they loved the games more than the actual players. Consequently, these games did very little to him in terms of financial stability, but they did make him a very, very visible figure in the Indian gaming scene. So lots of name recognition, but no money. But you don't have to feel bad for him. He has worked on several commercially successful projects since then. And right now he's in Serbia, just vacationing. He balances his time between his client projects and his in-house projects. So let's look at what went right for him in the beginning. Like Vaibhav, even Asar acquired skills to make games very early on in his career. He learned 3D modeling and animation on his own in one of the local institutes, and he was extremely proactive in the early days of his career. He tried to make games with seniors in his college, and he always looked for collaboration opportunities with other indies. So what went wrong for him? In his opinion, he did not balance the financial side of the games with the artistic side. But his next game called Lights On is currently under development, and it's a puzzle game over an environmental sustainability backdrop. So you can say he is back to his progressive roots, albeit in a commercially viable manner. I'm personally looking forward to this game. Next, we have Himanshu Manwani of Sigma Games. Himanshu's indie journey has been a dream run of sorts. I hope I'm not jinxing him now. Immediately after graduation, he joined ICAD Bangalore, and after that he joined RZ2 Games in Goa. He worked there for 4 years, honing his skills, and then he made the jump to indie. He was very well prepared. His first game as an indie called Super Nano Jumpers won big indie pitch at Pocket Gamer Connects Bangalore. So this was in 2015, I think. So what went right for him? So the award money from the first game sustained the studio. Naturally, I think the prize money was 10 lakhs rupees. And Himanshu attended events and networked with people. Initially, just in the initial days, it was just the events within India. But later on, he went to events outside the country, and this helped him in terms of generating contacts within the industry. And the another thing that is unique with Himanshu is he was able to master this minimalistic aesthetic that now runs across his games. If you look at them, you get a sense of what I'm saying. So where is he now? He went on to release more critically and commercially successful games like Rubeck and Bonfire, and he had just released Bonfire 2, and I heard that it is doing fairly well. So yeah. Next, we have Satyajit Chakraborty of Flying Robot. Satyajit is an elder indie. He's in his mid-40s. He has worked in the Indian animation industry before jumping into gaming. He is uniquely skilled in all the three basic skills needed to make games. Programming, design, and art. And this enables him to only take up projects in which he is involved in all the three areas. Rarely he works in projects in which he is only doing just the art or just the program. So in 2015, he worked on a game called Missing. It's an adventure game that deals with child sex trafficking. Naturally, it's a sensitive topic, and it was handled deftly in the game, and the game went on to win several awards. So what went right for him? In the initial days, Satish depended on client projects for survival, and he was able to convert client projects into indie projects because he was skilled in programming, art, and design. He was able to reverse pitch the clients and sort of influence their creative direction. In fact, Missing was initially conceptualized as a AR project, and they realized that it wasn't quite working out, and then it was conceptualized as a mobile game. He also collaborates with people. He works with freelancers, and he avoids having any full-time employees. He keeps his operations light. So what went wrong for him? So before Missing, his original IP called Warfront Defenders that ran into some publisher problems. So he initially worked with the now infamous publisher called Black Shell Media, and after that he went on with a different publisher, and it went into development hell, and they didn't work out for him. So where is he now? He's working on a sequel to Missing, and he's also working on a tea farm management game called Two Leaves and a Bud, which is looking quite stunning, and I'm looking forward to this one. Next, we have Zain Fahad of Overhead Studio. Zain had a strong inclination for Indian mythology and folklore from a very young age, and he studied animation at MAC, Bombay, and landed a job at Game Chester. He realized that all the big companies in India at that time were mostly doing grunt work. But he had this idea of making games rooted in Indian mythology, but targeted at Western audience. In the same vein as we have JRPGs, Japanese role-playing games. He had this idea of an Indian role-playing game. He pitched this idea to a couple of studios, but he was declined. The idea seemed too risky to invest in. So he decided to launch his own outfit called Overhead, and started work on a game called Asura. So what went right for him? Zain marketed Asura aggressively. He traveled extensively. In fact, at one point, you couldn't attend a gaming event in India without running into him. He was everywhere. And he was promoting Asura aggressively. He in fact traveled abroad as well. He went to GDC, he went to Taipei Game Show, and this helped him secure a lot of contacts in the industry, and also he managed to gather up a fan base for the game before the game actually launched. And he was able to fund the production of Asura by securing, service projects from the contacts he made during his travels abroad. And his 5 years experience of having worked for AAA clients in Game Shastra and Rock Salt helped him immensely, both during the production of Asura and while working for his clients as well. So where is he now? Currently working on an Indian role playing game called Yoda, while balancing it with client work. I don't have a speculated release date for Yoda, but you can follow him on social media where he's extremely active, devlogs and posting work in progress screenshots. Yeah. Next, we have Deepak Gurjala of Street Lamp Games. One of the few indies who managed to win both national and international awards for his games. They made a game. They made a puzzle game called Bombarika that was published by Cheetah Mobile. Unfortunately, he was down with COVID and is slowly recovering. So I couldn't have a long conversation with him and get his story for you guys. Right now, they are working with multiple hyper casual publishers and working on their next title called Cursed Arena, which will come out next year. And if you want to take a crack at the hyper casual genre, you can contact him. He can put you in touch with multiple publishers who work in that space. Next, we have Abhineet and Siddharth of Dastan Games. Abhineet and Siddharth were college friends who decided to team up, jointly formed Dastan Games. They made their first game called The Light Insiders. The game won an IGDC award and it was also selected for showcasing internationally. So a couple of things went right for them initially. They made their first game in just 7 months. They play tested the idea early and built the game in a relatively short duration. They also scoped it properly. Both were programmers, so they went with a very minimal abstract art styling for the game, and this meant that they did not have to spend any extra resources on procuring the art for the game. So, what went wrong? The Light Insiders was not commercially successful. It made them some money, but not a lot, which meant that they had to depend on client work to survive. They also committed mistakes with their second game, which they didn't do with their first title. They didn't play test the idea properly. On top of that, they decided to make their second game art heavy instead of a minimal art style like the first game, and this decision worked against them. They collaborated with another indie studio for the art, but they found it extremely hard to balance between their client work, the external art collaborating team, and their own development work for the game. And this pushed their game into development hell. And and it did not work out for them. So where are they now? They've actually parted ways. Abhineet is working for hyper casual publisher, and Siddharth is making small puzzle and simulation games on Steam. Next, we have Shailesh Prabhu of Yellow Monkey. They started out in 2007. Initially worked for a Canadian publisher to make games for Nintendo DS. Later, they've transitioned to mobile games. Their first critically and commercially successful title was Hubris, which won several awards, and the game also got a worldwide feature on App Store, which was a huge deal back then. So what went right? Just like the Stan games we covered earlier, they didn't have a artist within them. Like there were only 3 members, and 2 of them were game designers, and one of them being a programmer. So they played to their strengths. We don't have an artist in our team. Let's make a game that doesn't need an artist. So if you look at these screenshots of Hubris, you'll know what I mean. They've managed to make this game in 15 months, and this game has 400 levels. So they've playtested them all. They've fine-tuned them in the order of difficulty, the difficulty curves and whatnot. So this was a major success for them. So what went wrong for Shailesh? In his opinion, he failed to diversify his own skills. He actually came from a programming background. He studied computer programming in his graduation, but he gave up on programming and just stuck to design. And this meant that he was constantly in need of programmers to prototype or playtest any of his own ideas. And he also found it hard to retain his co-founders due to external factors. And by 2015, that fatigue had set in, and he just decided to move to Sweden after finding a job there. Right now, he's working for Sharkmob. He says he might start his indie journey again sometime next year. I'm looking forward to see what he will make. Next, we have Kashyap and Kitty of Octothorpe. They started out with 4 people in 2012 with a clear goal to make a cricket team management game. They took up service projects parallelly to fund themselves, and as they built this web game called Hit Cricket, they switched their game from web to mobile in 2014. And they saw really positive results in terms of player retention and monetization, and then they were able to secure angel investor funding. So what went right for them? They've managed to prototype and playtest their game within a year, and this is not a simple game to prototype and play. This is a cricket management game with a huge number of screens, and they were able to achieve this within a year while managing the service side of things. They've also managed to fill a clear market gap. There weren't any cricket team management games back then. I mean, the market is full of cricket games, but not cricket team management games. So they managed to clear market gap. And they are absolutely clear about their target audience. Their target audience are essentially the same sort of people who would be like, why is Dhoni coming at sixth in the batting order? Should be coming earlier. Like their target audience, for them, the match doesn't end with the telecast. They discuss and they strategize, and they are building this app essentially for them. And they were very clear about who they are and what ticks them and what irritates them. And they've also managed to pivot from web to mobile at the right time. And this is like 2014. That's when the mobile market is booming up in India. So lately they've launched a new game called Hit Cricket Superstars, which actually won the Atmanirbhar Bharat Innovate Challenge. They are also being featured by Google in Indian success story section for their work. So check out their game if you are into cricket. So lastly, I'm gonna talk about myself and my indie journey. So I worked for Infosys for 3 years after my graduation. It was a stable job, but I didn't enjoy it all that much. So I quit my job at Intel and started learning Unity on my own. At the same time, I started my diploma in game design at Backstage Pass in Hyderabad. A year later, I got a job offer at Ranger Studios in Manipal, on the west coast of Karnataka. So we made a couple of cool games, and the people were great. But I wanted to make games on my own. So 6 months later, I moved back to Hyderabad and started my indie journey. So I think a good number of things went right for me in the beginning. I've managed to make my first 3 games as an indie in just 6 months. I mean, without a doubt, those games were subpar by my own personal standard right now. But I iterated quickly. I failed fast, and I learned early. And I also kept my expenses in check. I lived on the city's outskirts, which meant that my rent was low. And I only worked with younger or slightly less experienced freelancers, to keep my costs low. And I try to use existing tools or assets wherever I can. And this way, I was extremely frugal. And on top of that, I never started a project I could not finish. There was this, I remember working for a couple of weeks and coming up with a cool concept around managing a national park. But I soon realized that I would not be able to finish that project, and I just dropped it. Lastly, I think I was successful in landing on a niche. I was able to spot a market gap pretty early on, and that was flight simulators of VTOL capability. VTOL is a vertical takeoff or landing. These airplanes can take off and land vertically like helicopters. And I realized no one made flight simulators on these aircrafts because it was not easy. They are literally part helicopter and part airplane. So I spent 3 to 4 months just researching aerodynamics and tried to implement that complex physics in Unity. And it was not easy at all, but I finally managed to make a game called V-22 Osprey Flight Simulator, and that was my first game to cross $1 million. And a couple of things didn't go well as well. After I found some success, I attempted larger projects with more action elements along with the simulation elements, and I didn't playtest the ideas early on. Consequently, the 1-year project became a 2-year project, and thankfully by that time I had the financial capacity to endure that step, and in the end the project was commercially successful once it was released. But yeah, that was a misstep on my part, not play testing the ideas early on. I also did not do proper market research for a couple of games. Most of my successful games belong to the action simulation genre. I tried to jump into other genres without doing the proper research, and those games were not that successful. I will talk more about this in the next section. By this point, you must have started to notice certain recurring elements in all these stories. I call them indie must-dos. I believe that you will have a greater chance of success if you follow them. Know your firepower. Scope your projects properly. Don't try to make a PUBG with a team of 3 people. It's not going to work out. Before you start a project, you must consider a lot of things. How many levels will it have? How many UI screens, 3D models, textures, environmental assets, gameplay mechanics, and you need to look at your resources and ask yourself if you can finish this project in a set amount of time. If it doesn't look feasible, then you shouldn't start the project at all. Be the early bird. In my opinion, this is very important for engineers. Prototype and validate your concept early on. Show it to people as early as you can, and watch them play the game. Oftentimes, players don't have the vocabulary to tell you why something isn't working because they're players, not designers. So you have to look at their body language and sort of read how they are reacting to the game. Are they having trouble understanding a particular mechanic in your game? Are they having fun? Are they annoyed? Are they engaged? And you will be able to perceive these things in the playtesting. And you can iterate and improve on your game. But if you notice that if it's not quite working out, just drop it. Don't fall into that sunken cost fallacy where you just desperately try to make it work just because you have invested some amount of time and money into it. Okay. Soldier of Fortune. Take up client projects to keep the lights on. This was a common thread amongst a lot of indies we've just covered. And for you to be able to do this, you have to be highly skilled. And this sort of neatly ties into my next point. Evolve and adapt. As an indie, you need to work on your skills and keep up with the industry trends. You can't be mediocre and survive as an indie. You can be mediocre and somehow manage it in a larger team, in a larger company, but you can't do that as an indie. There's just no way. You have to skip. Join the brotherhood. Keep in touch with other indies in your area. Participate in game jams and local indie gatherings. Show your games and seek feedback on them. Similarly, give feedback on other people's games. And talk about the challenges you are facing and seek others' opinion on them. I feel like it is very important to spend time on these interpersonal relationships. Know the beast from within. I've noticed that a lot of successful indies have worked in an established gaming company before starting their indie journey. I think these established places come with institutional knowledge, and working in that environment with other seniors can up your skill dramatically. So instead of directly jumping into indie gaming straight out of college, consider working for an established gaming company first. Don't reinvent the gears. One of the indies I spoke to told me that they created their own small tool to handle localization in their game, and that became a huge headache for them later on. Fact is, they could have just looked up online for localization tools, and they could have just used any of the popular ones. You can use the same logic for a lot of things in your game. Does your game have water, or clouds, or particle effects? Chances are you will be able to find highly customizable tools to implement these things in your game. If you are not sure if a certain tool can be used in your project, then look up the FAQ or contact the author and just list out your requirements and ask them if their tool will work for you. I personally do that a lot. Lastly, I'm going to talk about selection bias during market research. I've done this a couple of times, and I've seen other indies do it as well. When doing market research, they'll find an existing game that is similar to the game they are working on, and they'll be like, "Look, this game is buggy as hell. It has subpar graphics. The gameplay is mediocre, but it still managed 1 million downloads." And then they make the connection that the game they are working on will have superior graphics and gameplay, and they can safely expect to have at least 1 million downloads. Wrong. This is a clear case of selection bias. You are looking at the wrong game. You should be looking at games that had better graphics and better gameplay, but weren't successful. Of course, finding them on the market is not easy. This is why market research matters. You should find those games and analyze and figure out why it didn't work out for them, and see if you can do better and succeed. On the tales of those who perished. I want to begin this last section with a small story. The year is 1839. The British Indian Army has just invaded Afghanistan. This is the same army that had the entire Indian subcontinent under their yoke, probably at the height of their power and prestige. But they soon realized, just like the Americans today, that invading Afghanistan is easy, but occupying it, hard. So the garrison in Kabul decided to retreat back to India. But on their way back, they were attacked from all sides by Afghan tribesmen. And out of the 4,500 strong garrison that left Kabul, only one man made it back. That is him in that painting. Your chance of succeeding in your indie journey are about the same. Well, maybe not 1 in 4,500, but not more than 1 in 200 or 1 in 100. Let's look at some of the statistics in the market. Just 1% of mobile game publishers took home 95% of mobile game revenue. Just think about it. What this means is that most of the wealth that is being generated out of mobile games is going to a very small number of publishers. This is not good news for indies, and some analysts are calling this the App Store wealth gap. It's and it doesn't get better on Steam. On Steam, if you look at the data from Steam, 80% of indie games on Steam made less than $30,000 in their lifetime. This is not including the refunds and the Steam's 30% cut. And if we include that, it will be less than $20,000. So that's not enough to make a decent Steam game. There is this widespread hyper-romanticization of indie game development. You make games for a living. You get to be your own boss. You can make tons of money. It's not true. It's just not true. I spoke about all these, Indian indie developers, and they're all obviously successful. But what about the indies who weren't successful? Where are their stories? And I've been attending IGDC since 2015, and every year I see fresh new faces. I once remember meeting a mother of two who quit her stable job in a large software company to make puzzle games because she loves playing them. I also remember meeting a young college graduate from rural Orissa at one of the coffee tables, and he's learning both programming and art, and he's trying to make a mobile strategy game. Every year I run into people like them, and I hear what they are doing, and I wish them good luck with a slight hope that I'll see them again next year, but they are nowhere to be seen. What happened to them? Unfortunately, their stories will remain untold. It is hard for anyone to come out in a public space and tell everyone why they have failed at something. And we have this tendency to over glorify successful people and ascribe infallibility to them. And we sort of do that with Elon Musk. Derek Muller of Veritasium has this very interesting video on success and hard work on YouTube. I strongly advise you all to watch it. Yeah, I know. This sounds like a TED talk all of a sudden, but my point is you have to internalize the fact that there is a very high chance that you will fail in this indie journey. Despite all that blood, sweat, and tears, you may fail, and you know what? That's all right. Because even in that failure, there will be positives. Your skills will have improved. You will have more contacts within the industry, and you will have a more comprehensive understanding on how to make games. People would be interested in working with you or even hiring you. Unlike that British garrison from Kabul, you will not be dead. You will be quite all right. So I guess my advice for you all is this. As an indie, work hard and do your best, but expect failure. Prepare for it, and when it arrives, if it arrives, accept it. That's it. I will end on that sovereign note. Best of luck with your future projects. Hope you will enjoy this virtual version of IGDC. Next year, IGDC will be back in its usual form, I hope. And if you happen to see me then, come and say hi.
Arnav asks, do you develop art music alongside the development of gameplay, or is it something you do later? So ideally, you should have a project plan of sorts as you start your development. Music and sound effects, it's advisable to have like a list of sound effects you expect to have, so that you can contact sound designers and request quotes from them as far as how much it would cost you. The same with the art as well. If it is outsourced or collaborated, like you anyway have to come up with a list of art assets that you're gonna need for the project. So yeah, that's it's something you must do. It's typically called the pre-production stage, and that is where you plan all these things. Would you recommend starting off with a niche game or a more mainstream focused one? Rahul Narayanan asked this. It's an interesting question. I would, if you are learning game development or programming, I would advise you make something something easy. So a niche might not be the best option at that point, but once you are confident about yourself that you can pull off a decently complex project, then you should look into, my opinion is you should look into the niche. There is this popular strategy where it's easier for you to find audience in a niche than a genre which has mass appeal. Ashwani Sharaswat asks, how do you know when is the right time to start an indie or when you are good enough to handle it? In one of my indie must-dos, I advised indies to work in an established company before starting their indie journey. I feel like that's a very safe way of starting your indie journey. Yeah, you will have some amount of cash reserves on your hand, and B, even if your indie journey doesn't work out, you can go back to your career. As far as your question, like when would you know what is the right time? I think it's a question that you have to ask yourself honestly. Like if you are doing a fantastic job at your employ, then it means that you can. It could also mean that you can pull off a game project in that domain. So it's I guess it's a question that you have to ask yourself. Yeah, there is one question regarding how do you do market research by Ayub Sayed. So the market research, I think it depends on the platform that you're targeting. I have not worked on any Steam games, so I don't have any knowledge in that regard. But as far as mobile games is concerned, market research is, I've alluded to this mistake many indies do when they do market research. But just to expand on that, market research also involves figuring out who your competitors are going to be, and also figuring out what they have done right for them to succeed, and what were the things that weren't so great in those games, so that you can improve upon them. So it's those two steps, and also it's very important for indies to recognize if the market for the game you are making is saturated or not. Mm, from my point earlier, I mentioned you have to look at games that had good graphics, that had good gameplay, but could only manage 10,000 or 30,000 downloads. If you are able to identify games like that in the market, games which had good graphics and good gameplay, then it means that the market is saturated. I guess I think we are out of time.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes, the next speaker, which is me, is the one's already started. So thank you so much, Satish. That was brilliant. Apologies because the track started late. This is literally the keystone. This is the first track, so first virtual talk of IGDC 2020. So I think we're pretty lucky that it only started 10 minutes late. I feel like that's not a bad start. I've been kind of stressed thinking of how it would be, but it wasn't too bad. Thank you so much once again, Satish. Yes,
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it was absolute pleasure. You exceeded my expectations, as usual. Thank you so much, and hopefully see you next year. Thank you so much, guys. We can leave. I'm going to leave this room now, and give me a couple of minutes to join the other track, which is making your first game.